We're recording. This is week 4 of our online class. We've got Tom and Aaron and Becky are all here so far. There may be some other folks show up. Good to see you. You may notice that my background's a little different, and I'll let you see. I'm not wearing my McMurry colors, and that's a rock bar that I went to in Deep Ellum one time for a concert. I am actually in San Antonio at my father-in-law's house. We're down here for a week helping him get everything squared away so he can move. And it's one of the nice things about online classes. You can be anywhere. So that's what's going on. Let's take a look at the agenda. There's quite a bit, and we may run. I'm going to really try to get it done in an hour, so we'll talk fast, and if you miss something, then you can always go back and look at it. So let's see what's on our agenda. Okay, so it's week 4. Our agenda is our slide presentations that are due tonight. For those of you that weren't able to make it tonight, you'll have to make a video of your presentation and upload it to receive credit. We're also going to look at this. We're in topic 10. There's only, this is the last topic, and then we're actually going to cover the next 2 weeks of information tonight. We have discussion question 4, which talks about TEKS and lesson learning objectives, and then we're going to look at assessments and rubrics. These all are kind of parts of a lesson plan, but these 2 assignments will actually feed directly into your final project. So that I'm trying to streamline things a little bit. We'll talk briefly about the final exam and this final project, give you a chance for question and answers, and then our reflection. Okay, slide presentations. Okay, I think at the bottom of your screen, you should have a little pop-up menu that says share screen. Y'all see that? And I think what you can do is you can go share screen and then put your presentation as a full screen, and then just start and just tell us, and to change slides, you would just hit the space bar. And then when you're finished, you just go back down to the pop-up menu at the bottom, and you'd stop sharing. Does that make sense? Everybody okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're good. Okay. Who would like to go first?
I can go first, that's fine.
Well, thank you, Becky. You can begin anytime you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, I can see your screen just fine. And I'm going to mute.
Okay, so my major is early childhood education. The reason I chose early childhood education is because I really have a desire to make a difference. I was a Marine, so it's really important to me to have a career that's, involves making a difference and impacting people. I love working with kiddos. I've got 3 kiddos myself, which I'm sure you can kind of hear in the background right now eating dinner. It's a really big deal to me. I want to improve the quality of education. I feel like sometimes, especially in like lower income schools, they really miss out. Kids miss out on so much. And so I just wanted to be part of making that better for them. I want to be a lifelong learner. And some of my teachers I had in school like really just inspired me and changed my life. So I just want to kind of share that with others. What surprised me most about my field is learning how to teach reading. Like it seemed like it was just kind of a totally intuitive thing. And then like when I learned about it, I was like, there's so much more involved in this that I had no idea about, like learning about like phonological awareness and phonics and fluency and comprehension and how to assess and like pick apart where like the issue is. It was just, it was crazy to me because I was like, oh man, I didn't realize it was going to be that much to learn how to teach reading. And what was most different from my expectations, I think the one thing that was most different was teaching math, because I had this image of like, I hated math in school. I wasn't very good at it. And it's always been kind of like boring and not fun. But it's been so great, like learning how to teach it and learning how it can be, you know, so much more interesting and allowing children to figure out different ways to solve things and allowing them to be more creative and like do some cross-curricular things. Let's see, what has been one of the most interesting things you've learned about your field? Is that children can use different methods to solve, completely different methods to solve a problem and still get the correct answer. It was so cool, like learning, like, you know, just because I have one thought process does not mean it's the only way to do it, and just learning to be more flexible and accept more ideas that, you know, that education does not have to be black and white and so strict. What do I plan to do once I graduate? In the short term, I'd like to work for Abilene ISD, ideally grades like 3 to 5, somewhere in there. And then long term, I want to complete my master's degree at some point. And I would love to work for the DoD schools, especially like overseas. I'd love to go to like Japan and work in the DoD schools. So yeah, and the image credits are all mine. So that's it.
Thank you very much. That was very well done. Love those pictures. Are those children that you've seen in your student teaching and stuff, or?
They're actually photos from various mission trips that I've been on.
Oh, okay. That's neat.
Thank you.
Who would like to go next? I think Tom did, but he's still muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but I'm trying to get it full screen and shrink, and I'm still trying to get used to like the 20 icons I have or tabs at the top. And I keep
one of the things, go ahead, Tom. Take a minute and go down to your taskbar along the bottom of your computer and close any windows and any programs that you don't need. You should just, right now, the only thing you should have open is probably your whatever web browser you have and Zoom. But if you've got Word or anything else, your FreeCell, Mahjong, things like that, go ahead and close them up. That'll also help your computer run a little faster.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the presentation full screen, and I can't find the...
Okay, you're using, hold on, let me see if I can help here.
I have it in Google Presentations. I guess I hit the present. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, now you found it, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Now I got to figure out how to share screen here. Let me get it.
It's at the bottom of your video. It's a little pop-up menu, and it'll look like a green briefcase, I think. There we go. I got it.
Did we get it?
Yes.
All right.
And then all you have to do is hit the space bar to advance them.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Stonerode, and I'm also early child education along with Becky. Okay, spacebar is not working.
Okay, then the down arrow.
Use the arrow keys.
Yeah, I'm using the arrow key too. I'll just use my mouse. How about that?
That works just fine.
Why I chose my my current field is to start a second career, because I'm also retired military, and I was looking for something to do other than what I used to do, which I got bored of. So I'm trying something different. What helped me choose this field was familiarity. I can't even say it. Anyway, I'm familiar with training people and teaching people and working and being a mentor. So I wanted to try to carry that on because personally I thought I was good at doing it. So and I wanted to make a difference, kind of like what Becky said. I know I can make a difference, and working with the children, especially the early childhood, pre-K and kindergarten, I see the difference because I'm also a substitute teacher. So that gave me a feeling of what grade I wanted to teach. Also, throughout my substitute teaching, I've seen being a positive role model, especially to some of these kids. A lot of the kids that I have worked with have no fathers. They're single parents. And so to be that positive role model helps them out a lot, I think, personally. What surprised me the most, and the difference in my expectations, are attitudes. The different class or age groups that I substitute teach for, from high school the whole way down to pre-K, was attitudes. That actually kind of surprised me. I mean, high school, yeah, they're going to have attitudes, but you figure they'd probably want to cruise on. But it was weird. I guess I've been in the military too long, and it was quite different. Another thing was the positive attitudes that the younger kids had. And they wanted to go to school and they wanted to learn stuff, especially the kids below third grade. Above third grade, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet, but I'm working on it. Also, the younger kids seem very helpful. They always want to do stuff. They always want to do stuff for the teacher to help them set up and do all that good stuff. And their willingness. And that's what got me to the lower grades instead of the high school grades. That's what I want to teach. And the difference in my expectations of trying to be a teacher was the instructors that actually I work with. Well, I wouldn't say work with, that instruct me to become a better teacher. So the most interesting things I learned so far was the subject matter. And what I mean by that is, when you think about pre-K, everybody says they're babysitters, but that's not actually true. How much knowledge you have to have for their mental capacity and their thinking abilities and all that good stuff. That actually kind of surprised me, how much stuff you got to know to teach them. And the inclusion part, I didn't realize that until I started teaching here, the inclusion, how it's all comes, especially with ELLs and ESLs, and with the immigrant population that comes in, and even with handicapped children. I mean, they're all in one classroom, so you got to know a lot about everything. The child development and how they develop, I never known that, and they hit it up pretty hard, as Becky probably already knows, is you got to know the stuff. My plans for after graduation is starting my second career, having my own classroom. I actually look forward to having my own classroom. And designing effective lessons. Like Becky said, they give you a set guidelines. They got to know this by the end of the year, but it's up to you to teach it. So you can go, okay, this is my classroom. This is what we're going to do. And then you can modify it to where you feel comfortable teaching and they understand it. And really, I'm looking for a challenge. So I guess that just because of the military thing, I've always been looking for the challenge. And here's all my references. A couple were taken from Google Images, and there's a policeman site that I got it off of, thepolicemag.com, learningessentials.edu, and you can check out this site. It's about positive attitudes and how to be positive. So, and that's it. Is my share screen off?
Yeah, you're off.
There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you. I thought I clicked it and I must have was looking at the wrong place. We'll take a look at you mentioned lessons, and we'll take a look at. We're not going to do a full-blown lesson plan in this class, but we're going to hit this week and into next week. We'll hit some of the things, but probably this is just, I've got to check it in my head for next year. What you were talking about, inclusions and stuff, is things that when people do a lesson plan, they tend to think of, what are my baseline students going to do? And sometimes they don't plan for the inclusiveness they have to have. And that's something I'm going to have to put back in. Have y'all had classes on developing lesson plans and inclusion and things like that? Yes, no, Becky, okay. How about you? Okay, so I don't need to reinvent the wheel, then I'm in pretty good shape then. All righty. So let's see, I've got 3 people here. We're down 2. Who's next in line? Aaron, I think you're up. Okay, and you'll have to unmute your mic. Okay, I see your screen. And you're still muted.
There we
go,
go.
Aaron. Okay.
Okay. So I'm graduating, or I'll get my diploma hopefully for interdisciplinary studies in August. That's what I'm planning on right now. And my fields of study for my degree or for interdisciplinary is business, early childhood development, and kinesiology. When I first got to college, I wasn't sure what I was doing. I started with engineering and then went to business. This is how I got into the business section. And then I realized that when I played baseball, and then when baseball was over, I didn't really want to leave it. And throughout my years of baseball, I had a whole lot of really bad coaches. And I wanted to change that for kids in the future. So I wanted to become a coach and a teacher. And I know from what people have told me that if I could teach middle school in like small districts somewhere, I could teach younger and still coach in high school. And so that's why I went with early childhood development, to get me at least started there if I ever thought about teaching younger. And then for my coaching aspect is where I got kinesiology. Oh. And then my future plans that I have is next year, I'm planning on doing the fast track program at McMurry so that I can get my teaching certificate and teach somewhere. And I know in the past, I have actually never been to public school, so that's still kind of a shock to me. Well, it may not be a huge deal, but I've always been in private Catholic school, so I know how that works better than most. So I do have a few ins in other places. And then I do need to get a job outside of, I guess, school, since I've never really had a whole lot before. And then hopefully I can find coaching. I do know the people that work at DBAT here in Abilene, which is a baseball facility. And if I could get in with that guy, it would be, I guess, a huge jump in my coaching career. And then
you may have to use your mouse. That's what Tom had to do. Yeah,
that's what I'm trying now. Well, Oh, I guess that's all I've got. Those are my future plans, and
Okay.
really, I'm just
You had one more slide, didn't you have? Maybe go see if you can go back one. There we go.
Oh, there we go. And then I guess the most interesting thing that I have learned is, I mean, like she said earlier, that teaching reading is incredible. I never knew how much went into it and how much you had to know to teach reading. I guess it makes sense, being that you have to know the sounds and the stuff that we just take for granted now. Those kids just don't know at that age, and you have to teach them all of that. And then I've learned, taking all these coaching courses and UIL rules and stuff, that coaches have to know way more than just how to coach their one sport. Because I know baseball at my high school, you were out there and we didn't have trainers during practices. So you got to know your basic training. You got to know how to talk to kids on personal levels. There's just like a lot that goes into it that you don't really think about when you're playing it. But coaching it's just a whole nother area. So, and that is all I have.
Thank you very much. That went well. That's very interesting. Yeah, you should have a lot of fun with all of y'all with those early childhood. I'm at the other end, and the idea that those students would be so engaged and excited about teaching. That's something I have to work to get my students to do that. That's good. Okay. Let's see where we are in our. Okay, that was nicely done, everybody. I enjoyed learning from y'all. Okay, so see, the space bar doesn't work, so you have to click in the middle of the screen to get it to work. So let's discussion question 4. We're talking about the TEKS, and we're talking about learning objectives. Aaron, if you go ahead and mute again. Thank you. Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with the TEKS in your field. Okay. Aaron, have you looked at the TEKS in either kinesiology or in early childhood?
Not completely, because I thought, because in private school I knew I could teach business because I had business classes, but that's not as big of a deal in public schools. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out what it is I'm going to go into teaching for.
Yeah. There are business classes, and it's actually a pretty hot field if you can get your certification in. Let's see, what's it called? There's an acronym for it, and I can't remember it, but it's technology, business, all of those things are in one field, and it's considered it's a road to graduation, one of the roads to graduation. So it's important there, and also because it's considered vocational, so they get some special money from the feds to support it. So that makes it also another hot field. So you might want to take a look at getting your certification in business. Although I teach a technology class, because I don't have a certification in a business certification, they have my class is a fine arts class from the video side. So although my students end up going into a vocation, it's weird, but that's the way it is. So maybe you can take a look at that. Anyway, the TEKS, you may, like Aaron, for example, you may have more than one TEKS involved, depending on what you're teaching. I have several. I have, for me, because I teach video, I have a TEKS. I have 3 different TEKS, 4 different TEKS in that field, and then Spanish, I have 4 TEKS. So you kind of just depends on what you have to look at what class you're going to teach and work that. It's the foundation for everything you have to teach. The curriculum for your school, the curriculum for your department is going to be based on the TEKS. The testing that we do is based on the TEKS. I kept trying to think of the word. My head goes spongy. Anyway, the big test that we do every year in high school and starting in like the 3rd grade is based on the TEKS. The textbooks that you have will be based on the TEKS, and every lesson it'll tell you somewhere in the textbook, it will tell you how that lesson ties in with the TEKS. And the TEKS are not in in an order. You don't go down a checklist of the TEKS. They'll kind of bounce around. So the trick is you have a list of the TEKS, and you have to kind of, okay, I've done that one this year. I've done that one this year. Unless you're in a real small school, when I first started, I was at Jim Ned, and I was basically the Spanish department. So I was the one responsible that made sure we covered all the TEKS for Spanish. But in a larger school, and like especially in early childhood, you won't be the only one there. There'll be a teacher that's that'll mentor you, and they'll have the curriculum set up and stuff. So they'll make sure that you're covering the TEKS. So it works out. I have multiple links in Google Classroom and in Moodle to link you back to the TEKS web page so that you can go in there and find the TEKS that apply to you. So if you have to kind of know that stuff to kind of get a feel for how your subject is set up and what the state of Texas wants you to do. Then you take what's in the TEKS and you make learning objectives. How many of you have done a lesson plan before? Anybody done a lesson plan? Oh, okay. So I'm preaching to the choir. Okay. Let's see what I've got on the next slide here. All right. So I'm not there yet. One of the things about learning objectives, and I guess I'm kind of OCD about this, is that they should start with the phrase, the student will be able to. Okay, so this is what you're trying to do. And then you say what they're gonna do. The student should be able to count to 10. That's my objective. On their fingers. So that's an early child, that's a pre-kindergarten thing maybe. The student should be able to draw the letter A in a capital letter and a letter A in a lowercase letter. That could be an objective. And some people would say this learning objectives, period, and then the student will be able to, and then have subparagraphs about what the objectives are. You could do it either way. You sometimes, a lot of times, you'll have a conditional clause in there. When given, like in Spanish, maybe, when given a rainbow, a colored rainbow, the student can point to the colors in the rainbow and say what they are in Spanish. So that defines not only what they're going to do, the colors, but it kind of builds a fence around how they're going to do it. They're going to have a palette of colors, and they can point to the colors. So you'll see that when you take a look at the examples, you'll see that I do that a lot. When such and such and such and such, the student will be able to. The third thing that's in the objectives that goes back to last week is Bloom's taxonomy. So if you recall last week, there were all of those, there was just tons of adjectives, identify, sort, choose, describe. Do you remember all of those? Yes, no? Okay. those words go into your learning objective and will inform someone that's looking at your learning objective as to where you fit on Bloom's taxonomy. So you don't actually have to go into Bloom's taxonomy. If you do it right, then someone can look at those words and say, oh, the student, when given a chapter on, after reading a chapter in Don Quixote, the student will be able to analyze, or the student will be able to compare it to Romeo and Juliet. Oh, compare, analyze, they'll find that on the Bloom's taxonomy. Whoa, that's some really higher learning that they're doing. And so those key words also will help you sort your learning. So you're sorting your learning objectives within you've got the TEKS, which is your overall framework. Then within that, you're working on Bloom's taxonomy from, like when you first identify something, you're going to be at the bottom of the taxonomy. And as you continue to work within that TEKS, you're going to move them up the ladder of Bloom's taxonomy as they grow and develop. Does that make sense? You see, am I preaching to the choir? Is this something you've already seen before? Yes, no? Aaron, is this just a review? Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure I covered that because just in case we have someone that hasn't. All right. So the discussion question 4 is you're going to take the TEKS and learning objectives, and you're going to come up with a lesson plan or the start of a lesson plan. And it can be something you've already done, because I won't know. I don't care. If you've already got a lesson plan and you can just copy and paste it into the document, hey, that's great. More power to you. Anyway, so that's also going to be part of the final project. Any questions so far? You okay, Becky? Okay. All right. Then the topic 10 assignment is taking those learning objectives and making an assessment. Okay. Do you understand the difference between can someone, let me rephrase this. Can someone explain the difference between a formative assessment and a summative assessment? Anybody want to take a guess? Formative, summative. Hey, you're not for a grade. You got nothing to lose.
I kept trying to hit the button and it wouldn't work. I believe a formative assessment is what you're drawing to see what they have learned overall on a course or a subject or whatever. A summative is the overall of all the courses, everything, like the end of year grade. Did you pass or fail? That's the way I look at it.
Thank you. That's a good way to look at it. It doesn't have to be at the end of the year, though. You could have, for example, y'all are all looking at early childhood. But a formative assessment might be that given a piece of paper and a pencil, the student can write the capital letter A. That's one goal. That's summative. That's formative. Then given a piece of paper and a pencil, the student can write the capital B. Okay. Then another formative one would be given the student knows the alphabet in order, can say the alphabet song, sing the alphabet song. Okay, that's another formative thing. And then once they've done 26 letters and they can sing the song, your summative assessment is, given a piece of paper and a pencil, the student can write all the alphabet in order in capital letters. That makes it summative because the summative is accumulation of all those little pieces. And can you put these things together? It doesn't have to be at the end of the year or in the 6 weeks. Can you take all these discrete parts and put them together in something? Okay. Does that make sense? So summative, if you think of the word summary, summation, And formative, they're forming something. They're building blocks. So formative is putting its pieces. Summative is it's all summarized and put together. Now, another question. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or let me give you a statement. All assessments have to be grades. Thumbs up, yeah, true. Thumbs down, false. I got 3 falses. That is correct. Assessment is just, hey, did they do the assignment? Did they make it? Okay, good. When you do an assessment, when you write an assessment, and you'll see this in the examples, a good assessment, a well-written assessment will say what your standard is. For example, a student can write the capital letter A 70% of the time. See, so 7 times out of 10, they can do it. Now that gives them a little wiggle room. That's okay. So look at that. Usually it's expressed as a percent. Once again, the assessment will have the parameters, like as I said, given a piece of paper and pencil, so that you're saying, you know, or it may be for someone, one of your assisted learning things, one of the students you have that needs a little extra help with the alphabet on the blackboard. Given a piece of paper and pencil, the student can copy, you know, if you say the letter A, they can write the letter A. Something, so they're not doing it necessarily for memory. So whatever parameters you have to make the grade, then that should be defined in your assessment. And does that make sense? Is that out of a line? I don't want to be misaligned with your other teachers. Does that line up with what you've been taught in the other classes? Okay. Now, how many of you have, thumbs up, thumbs down, how many of you have seen a rubric before? I hope so, because I've been using them all this class, through the class. Would somebody give their definition of what a rubric is?
A rubric, it gives grading standards, and it kind of lists out like what each task, like how completed it is, like how much it'll be worth. So like if it's completely finished to your standard, it would be worth all the points. If it's finished but not quite to standard, some of the points, you know, or if it's not finished at all, no points.
Okay, I was having trouble getting my mic down mute. Thank you, that was very good. Now, Aaron or Tom, what are some of the advantages of using a rubric?
You can tell the students your expectations. I mean, this is what you need to pass, or they can look at the rubric and say, okay, I did this. It gives them like a check mark or a thing to follow to see if they can get all the points, I guess you want to call it. But it's pretty much, here's what you need to pass, or, you know, get the grade.
Okay. What about in early childhood? They can't read yet. So what is the advantage of a rubric? Along the same lines of what you just said.
Oh, that would help me, you know, look at what they're doing, and I can check it off. Okay, they did this. Because I'd have to do a verbal explanation. Okay, you're going to do this, this, and this. Did they follow it all? And I can check the rubric myself.
Who else would take advantage of this? You want to take a shot, Aaron? Who else would in an early childhood environment, let's say, because I'm eliminating the student, who else might take advantage of the fact you've got rubrics?
Help the parents so they know what their kids are learning and what they need to be learning and what they're looking at in class.
Very good. Now, one other thing, and since you were talking about students with that had to have a little extra help and stuff, you're going to have students that have modified learning. So you're going to end up going to meetings with counselors, diagnosticians, parents, an administrator, and every year those students will have a meeting and they'll have an individual education plan, IEP. And when you can, if you've got a child that's having some challenges, if you have their work and the rubric and the TEKS, you can say, here's the TEKS, here's what they needed, here's the rubric that I built off of that and all, and then here's where your student, and it will help identify in a very specific way where that student needs help. And that can be invaluable to, like you said, Aaron, talking to the parents, but also to administrators, counselors, diagnosticians, to help them diagnose where a student may need a little extra help. So it's a very, it's a very good diagnostic tool. The third thing, and it's used here a lot of things can be objective, like spelling. It's either it's right or it's wrong. But what about warm, fuzzy things like, how well a student articulated telling a story? How well did they tell a story? And you may need something you need to take what's subjective in your mind. You say, well, that was a 100. They did really well. Or maybe that was a 70. Well, how can you articulate something that's subjective and make it objective? And that rubric will help you cross that bridge. And I have not, and that's a very important use of rubrics. There's a lot of them. I've been using them, but there's tons of rubrics online for anything. You just go rubric for early childhood math, or rubric for teaching how to tie shoes, or whatever it is. So that's important. Okay, any questions about rubrics? We're good? Okay. Our final project is worth 25 points, and I think it's due on July. I didn't write it down. I think it's due July 3rd, because I have to have, you've got like a week and a half, and 4th of July is in the middle. I'm sorry, I think it's July 5th. I think it's due the day after the 4th. So I think that's right. But it's worth 25 points. It's a partial lesson plan. And there's a slide presenting these are the parts of it here. It's worth 25 points. There's a partial lesson plan. There's a slide presenting material and any other resources you need, and include a quiz in Google Forms. So it doesn't have a rubric, and it isn't going back over Google Sheets, but it is covering some of the other things. Let's take a look at these things in detail. The partial lesson plan. Okay, so there's and I'll have this out there, but there's I think it's even part of topic 10 for this week. Really pretty much covers this stuff. It's a Google document. It says my lesson plan, and you can change the title of it, put your name in it, and you say Becky's lesson plan, or Tom's lesson plan, Aaron's lesson plan. And it's the TEKS, which are in your discussion question 1, learning objectives, which is discussion question 1. I mean, not 1, discussion question 4, discussion question 4. An assessment that goes with that's topic 10's assignment. And I took the rubric out because there's not going this lesson that you're going to do, you're going to use a quiz for. So I couldn't really fit a rubric in there. But I want to say this again. Don't reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple. Okay, I'm not looking for anything fancy. Don't reinvent the wheel. Keep it simple. If you have some lesson plan that you've already done for another class, and you can just take it out of Word and cut it and paste the parts in, and it matches what I'm looking for, gives you extra time to find an adult beverage someday. Okay, because you're going to have to use Google Docs to do it, and that's what I'm looking for. Did you use Google Docs somehow? Yeah. Did you bring stuff in? Yeah. Okay. Do you understand what we're doing? Yeah. So I'm a happy camper. So don't reinvent the wheel and keep it simple. Okay. Any questions on that so far? You okay, Aaron, on it? Okay. All right. The final exam is 15 points. It's a reflective essay. I'll post that. It says July 1st. I'll try to get it out to you sooner than I'll try to get it out on the 2nd. I want you to put it in a Google document, and it's going to be questions, something real simple like, how do I see myself using what we've done in class? Okay. Once again, I'm not trying for you to prove relative theory using Google Apps or anything like that. It'd be fairly simple. It shouldn't, it's as long as your grammar's good and your spelling, your punctuation, and it's well organized. So you guys are all been around a while, so I don't expect freshman high school grammar, spelling, and punctuation. If you cover that stuff and it makes logical sense, you should have no problem. And I'll make sure I'll get that out no later than Monday. I think I'll get it out. I'll try to get it out Sunday. So you'll have a week to 4 days to work on it. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. I think let me see if I'm going to have Aaron's problem. Let me see if there's anything else here. Okay. So I guess I'm actually a little bit ahead of where I thought it'd be. Do you have any questions about anything? Oh, excuse me. Before you start, I know I'm behind on grading. I'm going to work on that the next couple of days, get my grades caught up so you can see where you are. Okay. So I know that's one question that's come up. Any other questions?
Since I just figured out how to go to my personal thing on your thing, do you want me to transfer the quiz and everything over and input that, or are you gonna check out my classroom? And because that's where I posted everything. Was it
Let me, Tom, let me, have y'all, Tom, we were talking before class started. Tom has been posting his stuff, not to my to our group classroom, but he's been posting it in his class somehow. And I take the blame for that. I obviously wasn't clear on how to do what we're doing. Let me see because sometimes I can find things that I can't. If I can't find it, I'll email you. Okay, I'll say, I know you did it, so just send it to me, or I'll open it up again and you can copy it. And I'll take a look. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay. All right. Our reflection question tonight, off the top of your head, so you may or may not have done any planning, but you probably were thinking about it as we went over the lesson. Off the top of your head, what lesson do you think you'll use in your final project and why?
Well, for me, I know personally I had to do one of my classes was a teaching reading class, and I had to make a whole book with lesson plans on how to do it. So I've got probably something like 40 or 5 different, I got a ton of lesson plans. So it's probably going to have something to do with teaching reading.
Pick a simple one. Pick something from early and just cut and paste. Keep it simple.
I think I'm probably going to do like kindergarten math one of those because I like kindergarten, and kindergarten math is fun. They're still working on counting and all that fun stuff. So, yeah.
I think I'm going to do mine on, I've been using writing, like Aaron said about reading, but I was learning how to effectively use a writing workshop in the elementary grades and what to do and how to start, how to progress them, how to scaffold their writing abilities and their fluency. So since that's probably fresh on my mind, that might be one of my lessons, I guess.
Yeah, and your teaks for that, and Aaron too, I think in your reading. See, you won't be in for all of you. You won't be in a. I don't think there's off the top of my head. Your teaks won't say like early childhood development teaks. You'll go for like Becky. You'll look in the math teaks, and then you'll go way to the very start. And Tom, you and Aaron will go to the ELL. English language learning teaks, and that's where your teaks will be. So it's not actually in childhood development, it's actually by subject, not level. So that's good. I'm looking forward to that. And Tom, does yours, do you already have teaks that go with what you're doing? You kind of know what your teaks might be?
Actually, while we were talking, I had brought up the teaks for that. And if you don't mind, I can share the screen.
Sure.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Let me see here. Let me share. Did it pop up?
Hold on. I think I got to stop my share first.
Oh, okay.
There. Okay. Now you do it. Your turn.
All right. Share screen. Is it up? I shared it.
Yes, I've got it.
It says that which one?
Click right there where it says English, Language Arts, and Reading.
Right. And these were all the teaks, but this is all about.
Now scroll back up to the top. See where it says elementary?
Right.
So it's going to be in there.
But this is all about reading, isn't it? Of course, I didn't do a search for reading.
Language arts and read. Go back, look right up, scroll back up. English, language arts, and reading, kindergarten. See where down from where your mouse is. Bring your mouse right down. Yeah, your pointer right there. Right where. See where it says that?
Right.
That's where you're gonna go. Now see, look where it says introduction. So that's just, you're going to want to read through that to get a feel for it. But that's not the teaks. When they ask for a teaks, that's not what they're looking for. Scroll down a little further, right there. Whoa. All right, so there's what you would have. I'm sorry, scroll up just a little bit. Little more. Okay. So you got part A as your introduction. Now go down to part B. Knowledge and skills. So your knowledge and skills would be like if you were going to where it says listen actively and ask questions. So that teaks would be 1A. So you would type 1A period and then copy listen actively and ask questions to understand information and answer questions using monthly word responses. If you were working, if your lesson fell within that teaks, that's what you would do. You'd say 1A period, listen actively and ask questions to understand information and answer using multi-word responses.
Yeah, I was doing a quick search when you were talking about the teaks and looking for writing teaks, you know.
Okay, well let's look. Sometimes, let's see, remember, all right, so that's foundational skill. Look there at number 1, go up to that line, developing and sustaining foundational language skills, listening, speaking, discussing, and thinking oral language. So that's not what you're looking for. Okay. So number 2, see where it says right, there you go. And it talks about print concepts. So your reading thing is going to be under 2A. See, so let's say you were trying to make a poem or something, your lesson. So writing, identifying rhyming words would be 2A1. Demonstrate phenomenological awareness by identifying and producing rhyming words. And I think there should be something, and some of that could be, yeah, see, and you got phonic knowledge, spelling, see, there's some reading and writing. And see, your teaks at your level are very specific. VC, CVC, things like that. In my foreign language teaks are not nearly that specific. Look there, right there, demonstrate print awareness by identify the front cover, back cover, and title page of a book. So that would be 2DI. Demonstrate print awareness by identifying the front cover. So you got all sorts of stuff in there. Yeah, you have, go down to where it says share screen. Yeah. All right, you're not sharing anymore. So, and you're muted.
Do you want me to share some more?
No, because
Oh,
we're
okay.
just about out of time. But did that help? And thank you for sharing that, because that kind of, especially if you are not familiar with your teaks. So Aaron, you're going to go to the same place as Tom if you're doing early childhood reading or writing. And then Becky's was just below that on that first page that talked about math. So y'all right there. Okay. Any other questions? All right. All right, if that's all there is, then we're good for tonight. A la Kumba. Remember, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. And we're almost at the end. In 2 weeks, we're done. Thank you all very much.